Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Monday. Up and at 'em, sunshine. So today is September 9th. I think I said 9th yesterday. Not only am I losing it, I'm losing it, right? So, what we're going to talk about today. So, how many people are looking at maybe taking on the challenge? And the challenge is just, knowing your limits, focusing where you can focus, where you can get stuff done, letting go of the things you can't control, and then having realistic expectations versus unrealistic expectations, right? And one of the things that really came to mind when I was thinking of those things, well, hang tight, we'll get right back to it. Alrighty, so welcome back. Yes, it is. It is Monday, September 9th. And today we're going to be talking about, my name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. If you don't know it, welcome to the zoo. So I thought we'd look at those three things. And if we're going to take the challenge, which I need to ground myself again. We have to go at it at a realistic expectation. And the first thing is in order to do anything, you need to know where you're at, right? And why do I say that? All right. Case in point. I thought I had around 51, 52 head of beef cows. And that counts the calves, the steers, all of them together. Well, this past week, we've shipped 10 to the sale, 2 to an individual, and when I started counting again this weekend, I lost count at 41. And they were still scattered around. So I was telling my son, I said, thank goodness, I said, your dad is bad at math. He's 42 this year. And he said, how so? And I said, well, I thought I only had this number of head. And I've still got more head in the pasture than what I thought I had when I first started. And he said, well, that's not a bad thing. He said it'd be a bad thing if you thought you had 62 and you only ended up with 45 or something like that. But he said the bad thing could have been you could have taken a different choice, and that is selling the herd to a cattle buyer thinking that you had X number of head, basing what you wanted per head, and not knowing exactly where to start, where your starting price would be, because you aren't even sure how many head you have, right? So you could undersell yourself and leave pretty good chunk of money on the table that you should have gotten in, right? So we need to know where we're starting at, right? And then we need to set in place something that's going to work and work for you. Now, when it came to the cows, I was looking at it as a whole. I'd like to take the winter off. I got some medical things I want to get caught up on, not something to do with my spine or muscle or something. And I started looking at it as a whole of how to try to get rid of the whole thing. And it became overwhelming, right? How do you, with just Claude and I, catch and get them to the sale? And even if you sold them to a buyer, you'd still have to get them on a cattle trailer for the buyer, right? And I paid a couple of people to come help. And the result was, it was worse because the cows would either see, smell, or hear somebody that they didn't know. And they would bolt like you took a shotgun and shot it in the air. So I realized that wasn't going to work. And for some people, they would have given up at that point. All right, just said, I can't do it. But if you do that, then you're giving up on trying to get stuff done, right? And that could be starting a business, what have you. So I set a realistic goal of, let's see if I can get 2 to 5 animals per week on the trailer. That was attainable. Because I could give them grain during the week, get them coming into the corral, lock them in, let out the mama cows that I'm going to hold back until the end because we haven't caught the calves yet. And then load on what we can load, right? And so far it's been averaging, 2 or 3 on a Wednesday and then 2 on a Thursday to a total of 5. And each week I'm dropping the herd by 5, right? So in a 4-week span, now I'm at 20 head that I'm out. So that's, over the next 2 weeks, I'll have half the herd out, right? And then I know it's going to get more difficult the smaller the herd gets because they're kind of onto us, right? But the last 3 that I loaded, I did it by myself. Because even the cows were getting weary of Claude, because Claude's not around them very often, and he's a little bit gun shy with them. And I just found, what, it's easier just by myself. They come in, they're calm, and voila, I had 3 of them on the trailer. The other thing I realized this weekend is that you can't go at it and do just one thing good, right? You can't take and just set your limits, knowing your limits, and not follow through with, your focus and trying to do things that are within your ability to change. If they're not, why are you wasting time on it? And the unrealistic expectations. If you do just one and not the other 2, you're kind of screwed, right? Because they all kind of correspond. And I got thinking that this weekend because, like, on Saturday, I was trying to think of what could I do today. Kind of a rainy day. And I said, well, let me give one customer a call and see if they're going to be around so I could drop off their mower. And they were. They said they'd be around that morning. So I loaded it up and I said, I'm halfway from between here to the customer. It's not that much farther to go up onto our hunting club. And it's got 10,300 acres. And I've been going up there, for over 52 years. Yeah. I'm 3rd generation. And I grabbed my fish pole. I grabbed some night crawlers that were in the fridge, not in the house fridge. Mama wouldn't allow that. We got another fridge down the shop that I put night crawlers on. Just a little apartment size. So I grabbed those and threw those in the truck, along with some hooks and stuff. And I dropped off the mower, and the guy paid. I went another 10 miles, dropped my trailer at what we call the lower camp, and just took my time up through, it was around 13 miles of road, round trip. And every time I come to the creek where I could fish, I got my fish pole out, put a night crawler on, and I had success. I was doing catch and release anyways, but I caught a couple nice brookies. And I stand out in the rain, I forgot my sweatshirt, but wasn't going to deter me one bit, right? So I did some fishing. And I also ran into club members that were up there trying to get a work day done. So I had a chance to visit with some of the guys I haven't seen in almost a year. So it was a good, all-around good day, And yesterday, I decided that I needed to go up to one of our customers that we're trying to get his beach so that it's dry and they can play volleyball on it, what have you. And the problem is it's got this great big belly plus a bunch of stumps. And the belly, tend to see water will lay in that. So the idea is scuff the high sides, fill in the low, and try to get those 3 stumps out, right? So I went up yesterday morning with my big 4-wheel drive tractor with a bucket on it, and I started moving the 10-wheeler loads of gravel that I had dumped at the top of the hill, because it's probably about 400 yards down, and it's quicker because a dump truck won't make it down there without getting stuck. So I just scoop up a bucket, run down, dump it, come back up. And my son and 2 of his friends were goose hunting that morning. So when I got done up there, of moving probably about half the gravel, I see that my son was gone and stuff. And Claude was gone. So I said, well, I'll run down to the shop, see if there's any messages. And maybe deliver 2 more customers on a Sunday. And they were both down there. And we broke a hydraulic fitting on the mini excavator on Friday. And nobody had one. It's one of the called gray machines, Chinese, and it's got eyeball thread, British thread. So Claude had come up with an idea of drilling the center out, screwing in a nipple, and then soldering it. And it looked great. So we decided we'd go up and put it on to see if we get the mini back going again. And it threaded in perfectly. Everything looked good. And then I realized what was the issue was a pin had started to come out, and it had like a pear shape on the end. And as that pin would pivot, that pear piece would come out and it would hit the hydraulic line, causing it to snap the fitting. And a bolt broke off that held that pin in place. So we decided we'd go ahead and use it. We just have to keep track of it. I took a hammer and pounded the pin back in. But my son took over with the mini, and he wanted to know what I wanted done. So I told him, I said, I want these 2 dishes dug right down to about 2.5 foot. That'll collect the water coming off the hillside in the springs, and that'll take it right to the lake. I want to level this all off up here, scut this off, and then I got to get those 3 stumps out down by the water. And I had worked at them for quite some time the other day, and I even took a chainsaw and was trying to cut roots. But to no avail. So we were trying to figure out how to bury them, bring the ground up high enough, and it just wasn't going to work. And that's why I say it's a 3-point plan of going forward. You need to have all 3 parts. Because my son didn't realize that there were 3 independent stumps. He was just trying to get the stumps out. And his plan of attack was to go all the way around it, the whole 3 stumps. And he accomplished something that we couldn't, because our focus was on one at a time, right? And we couldn't get to like the one, so we started trying to dig around the other, and we couldn't get to that one. By the time it was 2:30, he had taken those 3 stumps, which were all actually one huge stump with 3 offshoots about 7 to 8 inches in diameter, and rolled that up. And it was the size of the mini excavator. And he was able to flip it up onto the blade on the bottom, hold it with the bucket on top, and bring it out of the hole and move it off to one side. And that's what I'm kind of talking about today. If you just know your limits or work on that and you don't work on the focus and things you can control and realistic expectations, I'm afraid you might fall short, because in reality it's like those stumps. It's one big stump. It's just three different parts to the stump, right? Three different parts to that. And I think that's the key to success, is you have to realize when things are connected and you're connecting the dots, like aha, same idea. You may be able to accomplish one this week, but if you don't take care of the other two focuses, then I'm afraid that you're just going to fall back into that rut like I had. And by the way, while he was digging that stump, you betcha I have my fish pole. And now we're on a lake, so I'm fishing for smallmouth bass with night crawlers, catching a couple of them. And while he's sweating and working with the oldies, he loves running the equipment anyways. That will pound you, and you will feel it that night and the next day. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it has to be kind of all like the three stumps together, or you have to work on all of them, working your way around until you can peel that up to accomplish those goals that you put in front of you? Curious to know. So I'm going to start wrapping this up, but the main point today is it's kind of like how our lives are like the Bermuda Triangle, right? Sometimes you don't connect the dots, and the triangle is all 3 points, right? And once you identify the 3 points and you take it on as a whole, that's when you get things accomplished, right? Where a lot of people lose steam because they approach the first thing of, well, let me see if I can figure out what my limits are and where I am physically, mentally, so forth. But they don't take into account where their focus should be, and that is being grateful for what you have versus pissed and upset about what you don't have, or what other people have, or the Joneses per se. And you're struggling because you're trying to control things that are out of your control. We all do it. We all waste precious time trying to figure out solutions to things that just we have no control over. And, you would think if a rational person would say, okay, if there's no thing I can do or say that has any control over it, why am I wasting my time on it? Well, that's a rational person, right? But we become irrational, and that is we try to control. And that's the first thing. When you start to spiral a little bit, you start trying to control things around you. And if you start hinging on things that you can't control, and your focus is on what the Joneses have versus what you have, you're not going to come out of that spiral, the Bermuda Triangle. So you have to kind of take all those and then look at what are realistic expectations. Whether you're starting a business, where do you want to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year? I said yesterday, Rome was not built in a day, and neither is your business. If you're hop skipping and you're trying to get your business up and running in a couple of weeks, you're going to miss a lot of things you should be getting done and out of the way first. Or it's going to put you back to square one. And what they say, learn by fire. You'll learn all right in a hurry. But that stump really hung true for me yesterday, and was, don't approach it one at a time, because you're not going to be able to do it. Your chainsaws, the chain will get too dull trying to cut each stump loose, right? Because there's dirt, stones, everything else in it. There's sometimes we have to look at the whole, and that was like my son. Nobody told him that there were 3 individual stumps. I just asked him to see if he could get that stump dug out enough so I could get the chainsaw down in there. And he worked at it, I don't know, almost 2.5, 3 hours. But I had already spent twice that amount of time trying to dig around that thing and get it loosened up. But his approach was best. He wasn't confined to trying to get each stump out by itself. He opted to, let's go right around the whole thing. And once he started moving like part of one stump, he could see the third stump over, teetering with it. And that must have been his aha moment. So he started working around, snapping root systems out of the way to bring it up as a whole. And he accomplished his task that was ahead of him, because he wasn't confined to one single thing at a time. He took it on as a whole. And that's what I'm trying to get across today is, for the last 3 days, we've talked about different things that will change your outlook, your future, where you're headed, and get you in a good place, right? But you have to concentrate on all 3 as a whole, like that stump. If that makes any sense. I know. The stump is a stump, right? But it proved my point. So on that note, you guys have a great Monday. Write in the comments what you think on it. You know, a lot of you guys are successful at what you do. Do you fall into the rut every so often? I know you do. We all do. That's what being human is. So on that note, you guys have a great Monday. And we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Again, thanks so much for watching.